Hello, everybody. So we're getting ready to bring on episode 7 of the Down Home Texas Small Business Show. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I keep forgetting the name of our show.
I mean, because we went with one that was a mouthful.
I guess I don't know, we may have to rebrand. I don't know.
We're not rebranding. This fits us perfectly, even the forgetting the name of our own show.
We'll stick with it. All right, I'll go with that. So, what'd you do this weekend, Amanda? Did you get up to anything fun?
No, it's cold here, and I cleaned house and did not fun. Well, I mean, I did hang up my axes and stuff on the wall, and my 14-year-old, she is making ribbon roses for Valentine's Day and selling those. And so Mom is also learning how to do that with her. What about you?
I worked most of the day yesterday because, it is the season and it was cold again. Texas is doing that bipolar weather thing where it's really cold and then it's warm and then it's cold and then it's warm. So that's just how it goes. So.
You know how to avoid that?
How's that?
We just don't go outside.
Well, okay. I don't have a problem with that. I even order my groceries to be delivered to the front porch. I don't even go to the store anymore. So,
I mean, okay, so realistically, we can't avoid that here. If you hate the weather, wait 24 hours and it's most likely going to be different. But I am staying inside as much as possible. Hey, Andrew.
Okay. All right. Well, are we about ready to get started? We've got a really cool guest waiting in the wings. All right, let's roll the credits. Here we go. And we're back. Hey, everybody. I am Tammy Fisher, an enrolled agent.
I am Amanda Adams, a CPA.
And this is episode 7 of the Down Home Texas Small Business Show. And today we are going to be piecing together the payroll puzzle.
Ugh. I mean, that sounds terrible. I like puzzles. That's why I do accounting. So that's not so bad.
I was going to say that 5 times fast. It's kind of a little bit of a tongue twister.
I would rather Peter Piper. Yeah, I can't.
Well, we reached out and we have an expert in payroll today. Let's bring her on so she can tell us all about it. Let's welcome Shannon Theis.
Yay, you got my name right.
I
did. It's almost like we had a conversation ahead of time and I told you how it sounds.
Exactly like that. So, Shannon, you are an expert in all things payroll. I know that you run a very large payroll professionals group on Facebook that I belong to, and you also run a payroll company. So can you tell us a little bit about that and about your background and how you got into this?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I always wanted to do payroll, but felt like I had to do bookkeeping too. So I named my company Payroll Solutions Plus, where Plus was the bookkeeping. But I never really liked to do bookkeeping, opposite of everybody else I know. But I felt like if I wanted to do payroll, I had to do bookkeeping too. And usually the bookkeepers always feel like they have to do the payroll too. And in 2019, I had a conversation with a very smart person, and they told me that if I don't like to do bookkeeping, don't. Oh. And I started to promote myself as the outsourced payroll provider for other accountants. And only one person outsourced their payroll to us, but everybody else kept sending us their payroll problems. And so in 2020, it was a July, it was a Saturday morning. I was laying in bed. I hadn't had coffee yet, so I wasn't sure if this was a good idea. But my husband always has radio on, and a commercial came on for a disaster restoration firm. And I'm like, wait, that's what we do for payroll. So we I posted in a couple of groups and shared it with some people that I really trusted. I said, if I told you we did payroll restoration, what would you think we did? And they're like, almost everybody, without knowing anything, got the answer correct. And so then I trademarked payroll restoration. So super hard to do when you're using two words like payroll and restoration. It was almost a 3-year process to get the, and when you're trademarking a term, it's technically called a service mark, but nobody knows what that means. So for all the attorneys that are watching and cringe when I said I got a trademark on payroll restoration, I know the difference, but nobody knows what a service mark is. So, um, so now I've got 3 separate companies. One where we run payroll, where it hasn't been messed up. One where I do training and consulting on payroll related things, and payroll restoration, where where our tagline is we fix broken payroll. And so I want to put trainings and stuff out there so people don't need payroll restoration services, because let's all face it, our clients do crap that we find out about later, and
Oh my
somebody's
gosh.
got to fix it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we're going to get into some of those stories at the end. We've agreed that we're going to save some time for some of that because those
Oh,
are we love those stories. Those are
I
always
have
fun.
so many.
I'm sure you do, and I can't wait. Um, but I love your group on Facebook. For it's a great group for us professionals, and I have seen you answer some of the craziest payroll stories in there. Because yes, this is an area, and Amanda's going to back me up about this, but this is an area where business owners can really make some big mistakes, right?
Such big mistakes.
Yeah, just because they just don't know what they don't know, and they just get in there and start writing those paychecks and not really fully understanding all the bits and pieces, because it really is a puzzle.
It is. Yeah. And and I actually have 2 different payroll groups. One is Payroll Solutions Community for Accounting Professionals, and I have one that's called Payroll Solutions Community for Business Owners. One is
Oh,
definitely more active than the other, but and that was another conversation I had with a really smart person. In their group, they had a mix of business owners and accounting professionals,
mhm.
and she said that that was one of her biggest regrets, was not having the group just be focused on one or the other, and having both groups of people in her group, was because when she's when people are asking a question, it's so hard to know, am I do I can I just speak accountant, or do I need to speak English? And then it it at one point it did lead to a lot of problems in her group, where we're all just saying, "Oh, you do this." And the person's like, "I didn't understand anything you just said."
Yeah,
Okay.
I can see that being problematic only because like I'm in some of those groups and sometimes people come in and I'm like, do you understand what I'm about to say? Or are you, and then you never know how technical to be, how straightforward to be.
Yep.
It's just one of those weird conundrums. I love helping. I love being a part of those groups. Accountant English, Jason. Accountant English, accountantese is not easily understood by everybody.
It is. I didn't realize that you had the payroll Facebook group for business owners.
Yeah,
So we're going to
and
pop up the link to that in the chat for people.
link that you put in the chat.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, we're going to make sure that that gets up in the chat for everybody. Amanda, if you'd post that one to the LinkedIn chat for me, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about, for us as professionals, it's especially for Amanda and I, we had this conversation leading into this show. The word payroll, when we talk about the word payroll with our clients, we specifically mean people that are on
Payroll.
a W-2. We mean employees. Is it the
Right?
same in your world?
Oh my gosh. You know, if you ever want to see an accountant or a payroll person cringe, use the phrase 1099 employee.
It's my favorite. I love that phrase. I love it.
I know, because usually
Starter.
the words that come after that means I'm going to be getting paid fairly well.
Yes. Right. That yeah. When I have clients come to me and they say, oh, I've got to run payroll and I don't have anybody that we're withholding taxes for, I panic because I think I've missed something. And then I'm like, what are you talking about, payroll? And they're like, oh, all the people that I have on that, all of my contractors. I'm like, okay, let's
Well,
reverse. Let's go backwards. Let's talk about terms, because we're not going to use the word payroll, and we are not going to use the phrase contract employee or 1099 employee. Explain to everybody why we don't use those words.
I have a whole presentation. If I will get into that with the presentation.
Okay.
But at first, I want to defend the people who make me cringe when they say 1099 employee, and that is because payroll software put contractors through the software, and you have to have the payroll software in order to pay the contractors their 1099. And 1099
True.
wages is another thing that makes me cringe, because it's there are just phrases that
Yeah.
set us off. So if you're a business owner, just understand that there
Yeah.
are some phrases that just set your accountant off, because it's like, hold on,
Right.
wait. I need a lot more information here when you said those words.
Yeah. And you are right. There is software that we all use, and they did lump contractors in with employees. And
Yep.
I,
And
mm,
for
they did.
all of them, no matter what software it is, if you want to pay the contractors with a direct deposit, it has to run through the payroll software.
That's correct. Yeah,
So,
it has to. But it isn't really payroll.
no, it's not.
It is not really payroll.
All right, so
So,
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start the
yes,
presentation. And
let's do that.
definitely interrupt anytime you've got somebody that is asking a question. All right, are you piecing together the payroll puzzle?
We are, yes.
Okay, and I only have two screens, and I lose seeing you guys with the
Okay.
when with my views. Um, Shelly, let me try something. It kind of works. Okay. All right. So a little disclaimer. This is just information. It's not tax planning, financial, or legal advice. At the time that we're recording this, we've made every effort that every to present as accurate information as possible. So these are just some of the things that I'm going to touch on today. We only have an hour, or actually, we only have 45 minutes, so I can't get super deep. And I want to spend a lot of time on examples and answering questions on what happens if you get it wrong. Because let's face it, every there's so much confusion with the word payroll, and we've already touched on why. So,
Right.
you know, payroll is for W-2 employees, not contractors. We, as accounting professionals, we need to be careful when we use language because it means different things. And as when we're talking with business owners, we need to, just don't feel bad if you have to stop them and ask them a question. Because if you just keep, so many times I see a lot of accountants and bookkeepers asking in some of the professional groups, well, I don't want to ask my client this because I don't want them to think I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not a mind reader. I have no clue what your client is doing. I would have to ask my client that question. Don't feel bad as an accounting professional to ask your client to clarify something. Um, so a business can, some businesses can have independent contractors and employees doing the same or similar work. However, you have to know what your state rules are because a lot of states are cracking down. Like if I were to hire somebody to help me with a payroll project and they live in California, I would have no choice following California rules but to hire them as an employee because of this pesky little AB5 that they passed. Um,
Right.
so, but I could have Tammy or Amanda help me with a payroll project if they wanted to, but we all know they don't. But they we
We
because
might.
they're well, you're right. But
We might.
wait till you hear some of the stuff I've got coming up.
Okay.
Um, we because they're in Texas, Texas doesn't have that same rule. So I could pay Tammy or Amanda's business and not pay them personally. And it's really critical that business owners are able to determine if they have employees or contractors.
Mhm.
And this
And that's
this is straight from the IRS website, so it's not super clear.
and that's probably a really big consideration these days with remote work, and
Mhm.
and so many people are hiring others that are completely different states away.
Right. And if they're hiring them as employees,
Yes.
but they're paying them as if they're coming to the home office to work, that for like 6 months last year, every single restoration project that we had come in the door was,
Hmm.
I'm headquartered in X state. I have employees in these other 6 states. I need to set up accounts in those other 6 states and get their wages moved over there.
Right.
And
Yes.
that can be tricky.
Right.
And it depends on what state their the headquarters is in too that helps us determine how we fix that. We'll talk more about
Hmm.
that later.
Okay.
Um, I don't want to spend a ton of time distinguishing the three different controls
Hmm.
that the IRS has because this is the IRS. The most of the time, your state Department of Labor or Department of Labor and Industry, whatever it's called in your state, they're going to have most likely a more strict determination between if it's a contractor or an employee. And I always say, if you don't know for sure, for the behavior control, the financial control, or the relationship to the parties, err on the side that you have an employee. You don't have a contractor. And the last time I gave this presentation, we spent quite a bit of time discussing the relationship to parties aspect, because, and since then I've seen it come up at least 3 times. And the last time I gave the presentation was on Friday. So we if you let your contractor in the retirement plan or pay, or the group health insurance plan that your company offers its employees, chances are you don't have a contractor anymore. And the state Department of Labor or your unemployment department is going to is going to determine that as well. Even and I understand and know that a lot of professional organizations will do like a group health insurance policy for its members. And the distinction there is people are paying for the membership. They're not being paid to perform services for that organization.
Okay.
And that I think that's why organizations can get away with it. But I will talk more about things that I've seen coming up.
Okay.
So can I just butt in right here and say,
yeah, absolutely.
If you're questioning, you can ask the IRS. There is a form that either an employer or an employee, it's called an SS8 form, that they can fill out. Now, with everything IRS related, here's my disclaimer. You are not going to get an answer for months and months and months.
It's
And
6 to 18 months is their turnaround time for an SS8 currently.
So therefore,
6 to 18 months.
It's not going to give you a timely response, but if you want to cover and show that you are doing your best, and again, it's employer or employee. So if you've been from either side, I guess a contractor too, if they're not technically an employee, they can request a review of this. Just to be fair, it can be done, not timely, but there are options for you.
Right. And probably instead of asking the IRS, I would give a call to the Department of Labor and ask them, give them the whole scenario, and they'll let you know. And from my dealings with them, their guidance is, in every state that I've called, has been similar to mine, which is, if when in doubt, if anything is a maybe and not a definite no, then you err on the side of having an employee.
Okay.
So can both sides do it with the state as well? And do you know, and this may be, I'm just asking, what happens if, say, who should be an employee is put in as a contractor and then they contact somebody? How does that resolution happen?
There's usually a Department of Labor audit, and they'll look at all of your contractors and all of your employees and let you know on each one what you have. But you should be, if you call up and say, I haven't hired a contractor yet, I'm not sure if they're a contractor or an employee, give the scenario. There's usually nothing is going to happen because it's showing that you're being proactive. It's not usually the things that trigger an automatic audit are when you have a contractor that you end the relationship with and then they file an unemployment claim in their state.
Right.
Then the state's like, well, I don't have ABC Widget Company as an employer in this state. Then they'll collect a lot of information from the person filing the unemployment claim, and then they come to you and you have to prove that they were a contractor. Um, so an employee is someone who performs business services for the business, and the business controls what will be done, how it will be done, when it will be done, and generally provides training on how to do it. With independent contractor, my recommendation is when you hire an independent contractor, don't pay a person, don't pay a social security number, pay a business, pay an EIN, because, and then all of the contracts that you have will be with Shannon Theis, owner of Payroll Restoration, and my W-9 says that you're paying Payroll Restoration with my EIN on it. And if I were to go file an unemployment claim in Texas because Tammy or Amanda said, you know what, we don't want to work with you anymore, then they have really super solid footing to say, nope, we paid Payroll Restoration. Shannon was never an employee. We hired her because she's an expert at payroll. And but where it gets murky, and I'm going to tell you, with all of the Department of Labor audits and unemployment audits I have seen, when you pay somebody and you're paying a social security number, even if you have contracts with their business name, it almost always says that they were an employee.
Right.
So
Yes.
just be aware of that. I think we've already covered these. So I'm just employment agreements. You want to have a clear employee agreement with an employee and have a service contract with an independent contractor in that contractor's business name. I am getting over this horrible cold, so I apologize for coughing.
It's fine. I think we all are.
I think, yeah, I think pretty much everybody is, and I've had this cold since December.
Mm-hmm.
So best practices. We've been, sprinkling these in, and another place besides the Department of Labor or the IRS to ask is an employment attorney.
Right.
Um, Sorry, I just lost my screen for a second there. And then we're going to talk more about the risks and consequences of misclassifying workers later. But you get a do you guys have any questions or anything right now?
I work a lot with contractors, so you said always make sure to pay EIN, but oftentimes some contractors are sole proprietors working under the Social Security number.
So, and here's where I disagree with some of the content that the IRS put out when it comes to filling out the W-9. It says that if you're not an S corp or a partnership, that you should fill it out with your social security number, but you can get a sole proprietor EIN that is tied to you personally. I have one from a business that I started in 1996, and that's going to be my personal sole proprietor EIN number until I die. And each one of the businesses have an EIN because they're all set up as LLCs. You get an EIN and you put an EIN so that your social security number is protected, and it's protected against identity theft and identity fraud. So my recommendation is when you fill out a W-9, if you're a sole proprietor, put your your name on line 1, put your business name on line 2, use your EIN, and you won't get a mismatch if when you file your Schedule C, you put your EIN on the Schedule C, because then the IRS can tie everything together.
Right.
This
No, I know that, but what happens as a my husband owns a contracting business, for instance. He can't dictate whether people that he subcontracts to use their social security number or EIN. So are you saying like you would suggest not working with those individuals?
No, what I would suggest when you get that W-9 and it's got the Social Security number on it, I would give them a call and say, you know, you filled this out with your Social Security number. Do you have a business EIN? If not, do you know that they're free? So, 'cause when I did bookkeeping, I did general contractors as my niche. So I'm very familiar with the construction industry. And yeah, some people they're going to just use their social security number because they're also going to handwrite on carbon copy paper their invoice and you're not going to be able to read it. But that my recommendation is to see if you can do a little counseling with them to get an EIN and use that and their business name. But definitely, if you can make the contract with their business, then that should be a little bit of a protection.
Interesting.
Okay, so just to recap, the definition of a W-2 employee has to do with you control where they work, when they work, how they work.
How much money
Yes.
do you work for?
Right. Whereas a contractor, you hire them to do the project or to do the thing, but you don't control exactly how they do it, and you don't tell them what hours they're supposed to work or where they're supposed to report to work.
Correct.
It's on them. Okay. So for
Right.
those, so we all know somebody, I'm sure we all know somebody who has said, oh, I hired an administrative assistant and she's going to be a 1099 and she's going to work 40 hours a week, 9 to 5. That's not really a 1099.
No, and
Okay.
another big bit with contractors is they have to be available to sell those same services to the general public. With an employee, you can put in the contract that they can't work for other similar
Yes.
type of companies.
That's a big one. That's a really big thing to point out. You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay.
Um, so exempt versus non-exempt employees, that has to do with if you pay them a salary, are they still eligible for overtime? Exempt employees are not eligible for overtime, and non-exempt are.
Correct. And we understand this because we're in the industry.
Yes.
I think a lot of lay people confuse this with hourly versus salary. And the language they use is I'm salary, so I don't get overtime.
Right. And
That's not
there's
necessarily true.
no, and there's been a lot of big cases. I think Taco Bell got into trouble probably 10 years ago now because they didn't want to pay overtime, so they made everybody a manager and put them on salary and then made them all work 55 hours a week. So you can't do something like that.
No.
So the key thing is to know the difference. Generally speaking, a sales position, a professional position is can qualify as non-exempt, but I always just treat everybody that's on salary as I start with the assumption that they're exempt or that they're sorry, I start with the assumption that they're non-exempt
Non-exempt.
and then we pay them overtime, so we still track hours. And I misspoke earlier when I said so salespeople and professionals are exempt, generally speaking, but you always want to take a look at your state Department of Labor rules as to what types of people are exempt or non-exempt. And
Yes.
if you just generally err on it's okay, the assumption that everybody's non-exempt and pay extra when they work overtime, then you'll usually be fine. But definitely, if you're going to have salaried people that are non-exempt, you'll definitely want to know what your state rules are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, and then Andrew asked what location Taco Bell did that. I
Well,
think it was all of them.
yeah, I think so.
I think it was the corporate stores. There were which so a lot of franchises will have franchise owned stores and corporate stores. I think it was the corporate stores. I don't know that much about Taco Bell. I just remember reading that and being like, what who seriously thought this was a good idea? Did they run this past an employment attorney?
I'm sure. Well, anyway, we can. We might not want to. There are things we can talk about, but we might not want to name names. So
Right. I think we'll table that now.
we'll table that
Um
one.
and then so when you put I just want to make one quick comment about owner pay
Yes.
that when you pay the owner, if you have owners and other employees, you do want to separate out owners pay on the books and
Yes.
maybe give it a different pay code because
Yes.
when the business goes to file their taxes, owner's pay has to be reported separate from everybody else's wages.
Yes, it does. Yes.
And
And
and there's a right and
and
wrong way to pay owners depending
yes.
on what kind of entity you are running.
Yes,
Yes.
I have seen so many businesses where the owner was an LLC. They didn't know any better. Whatever big name popular software payroll software company out there was more than happy to take their money and let them put themselves on payroll
On payroll.
incorrectly as the only employee. So you
Yes.
there is a big distinction between a payroll service and payroll software. So always the payroll software is they might be able to guide you some, but they are definitely not payroll experts. The people that you talk to at most of these payroll software or companies know how to make the software work. They don't know
Hmm.
the different state rules and regulations.
Right. Absolutely correct. Yes.
And we already talked about, the W-2 payroll,
Hmm.
payroll taxes.
Hmm.
When you pay an employee, the employee pays half of their FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare, and the business pays the other half of the employee's Social Security and Medicare. They also pay federal and state unemployment. Depending on what state you're in, the state unemployment could be high. I'm in a state where our wage base is 42,000. Tammy and Amanda are in a state where the wage base is 11 or 12,000. And because I mean, and you need to know if if it's an S corp and the owner is on payroll, you need to know also if you're in a state that automatically excludes the business
Right.
owner from the state unemployment,
Right.
or or if they're in a state where everybody can pay into
Can
unemployment.
can pay in. Right. Right.
I'm in a state that owners are automatically excluded and you have to jump through
Right.
hoops in order to make the
Put
owner
them on.
somewhat, well,
Okay.
you can pay into unemployment, but most of the time we still can't claim
Okay.
unemployment.
And I believe in Texas, the owners are not excluded.
Nope, in Texas you're automatically
You
included.
included. Correct. Correct. And I also want to point out that those payroll taxes that you withhold from your employees' paychecks, um, they are not yours to keep.
No.
Those are not yours to keep. Those are yours to be held in trust until you pay them into the Treasury Department. So you can't just leave those in your account and then go spend it. You will get in big trouble for doing
Are
that.
you sure?
Am I sure? Yes.
But what if I want to buy this other thing and I can't afford it unless I use the payroll liability?
All I have to tell you about that is be prepared to be, what's the word? Be prepared to
Oh,
maybe go to jail.
I mean, liens placed on you to get in
Yes.
a lot of trouble, penalties, interest. This is one of those things that, while I joked, are we sure? It really is very common and is really very serious if you are doing that. I think that I've talked to a ton of business owners who don't understand how much of an issue it truly is. They kind of think it's no big deal. It's like paying an invoice late. No, no, sir, no, ma'am. It is not the same thing as paying an invoice late.
No.
no, and if you have a
No.
track record of paying your payroll liabilities late, the the penalties keep increasing. You get failure, well, if you don't file your taxes or your returns, you get failure to file. If you don't pay the liabilities, you get failure to pay. And the failure to pay penalties can be significant.
Right. Right. And if you do it long enough, they will consider you a what is it, willful
Yes.
failure to pay, and they will prosecute you.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
And the
yeah,
IRS criminal division, if they decide to prosecute, have something like a 99% conviction rate.
absolutely. Yes, they do.
So
Yes,
you
they
don't
do.
want to get on their bad side at all.
You do not want to get on their bad side.
Just to
And
scare everybody a little.
listen, this may sound harsh, but if you are a business owner who withholds money from your employees' checks, and then you turn around and cannot pay the withholding into the Treasury Department, um, you can't afford to have employees.
No.
So you need to rethink that.
All right. Should we talk about real world examples? Was there any
I
other
think we
questions that
should.
came up before we get to the fun part?
Let's talk about some real world stuff.
This one just happens to have come out of Texas. They had very I thought they had pretty decent contracts, but they brought me in after the fact. They had an attorney that helped them with this, but they had a contractor that went and filed unemployment, and the Texas Workforce Commission reclassified that employee and two other contractors as employees.
Mhm.
And I was working with the other two contractors and the business owner, and let me tell you, the other two contractors were really mad because they didn't want to be employees. They had businesses, and because they got classified as employees, all of their business deductions
Deductions went away.
went away. It
Oh,
because they were for this specific client. I mean, this one got bad because, and in my opinion, the two people were contractors. They were being paid to their business. I mean, the business did everything correct, where they were paying the business and the EIN, but somebody else went and filed an unemployment claim,
I see.
and
And
they got
so,
involuntarily reclassified, and Texas Workforce Commission went and helped them file all of their redo all of their unemployment returns.
oh no.
But then I got brought in to reclassify their all of their 941s and 940s and get W-2s issued for the 2 years that were involved.
Uh-huh.
And oh my gosh, I really literally just completely lost what I was going to say.
Okay, I
Um,
have a question. Can those contractors
oh,
appeal that?
they did, and they lost.
Wow.
Okay,
So
Wow.
that has great impact for all of the contractors and their returns. I mean, that's a huge blow.
it was. Oh, so the business owner, their attorney is like, "Oh, with the IRS, just do the voluntary reclassification program." I'm like, "You're completely not eligible because you
Mm.
can't have been caught. You have to voluntarily disclose it. There is no voluntary disclosing anything after the Texas Workforce Commission came in and said, you've got contractors that were really employees."
Please.
So if, and at the beginning of COVID, I did a lot of voluntary reclassification. I also turned a lot of people away that wanted voluntary reclassification. And the reason for the boom in reclassification work that I did was because of PPP, and
PPP and
people,
ERTC.
no, it was
No?
PPP because this was in March and April of
Oh, okay.
2020. So it was like this, it was a free for all. You went to the bank and said, and put some numbers on a piece of paper, and they're like, "Oh great, you'll get this money." And they gave them PPP. But then the banks are like, "Okay, we're going through our files. Okay, we need 941s. We need unemployment returns. We need all
Mm-hmm.
this backup documentation that you had employees." They didn't have it because they had contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So I I wouldn't reclassify contractors that were really contractors. I
Mm-hmm.
only reclassified contractors that were really employees. People got mad at me. It was a whole thing. I got bad reviews. It was funny.
Gosh, I
Um,
can just imagine.
but I got most of them taken down because I'm like, I am not about to break the law to do these things
Shoot,
for you.
Shannon. I can just imagine what that was like. But you know what else scares me though? Is that I guarantee you, and you know this, that there were people out there doing reclassifications that weren't on the up and up like you are,
Right. And
that
they
were happy to just do the reclassification and not ask any questions.
Right. And, at the beginning of 22, when the rules for ERC changed, when they opened up
Mm-hmm.
ERC for people who got PPP, my firm started to do a lot of employee retention credit. And we would tell people they didn't qualify. And then we would get call, we I don't know why business owners felt the need to call us back and say, "Well, you missed out. I got this much ERC and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "You don't qualify. Don't you obviously have my number. Don't forget to call us when you get audited by the IRS."
No,
Right.
please don't call me when you get audited by the
Right.
IRS.
No, well, I did ERC. I'm like, I will gladly tell the IRS you don't qualify. But and then we get calls from the client CPA because a lot of the tax professionals were referring their clients to us because they didn't want to do it themselves. And I got one Facebook message, and the guy's like, I thought you said my client didn't qualify. How come they got an ERC check? I'm like, maybe you should ask your client because we didn't do anything for them. We did. And we,
It's crazy.
it's sometimes we really want to help these people,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes there was really nothing that we can do.
Uh-huh. Right.
And, you know, some of the other issues with the misclassification is you'll have probably 10 people that are doing the same or similar work, but because of different aspects of what they do, if you give somebody a computer because to do their work because you want to be nice and their computer died, that could shift it from being a contractor to being an employee. And because of what we do, everything is so secure.
Uh-huh.
We do give our contractors like a remote login to one of our computers,
Uh-huh.
but we make our contracts really secure and specify that, yeah,
Right.
we we have super specific tools that we use, and not everybody has those tools. So our contractors, it's kind of a gray area where
Uh-huh.
we probably should pay them as employees, but they're really not employees because they tell us when they're going to work, they let us know.
Uh-huh.
But can't that same flexibility, and just throwing this out there, can't that same flexibility exist for an employee? I've been a bona fide employee and been able to say, I only work in these hours, or I only work, and my point to that is, it is a very complex when we're dealing with it. And so looking at one minute detail makes it hard to decide, and you have to look at the broader picture.
Right. Yeah, because with our employees, we give them a Google Calendar and they tell us when they're working because we do have that flexibility.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I guess my point with the contractors is we we pay our contractors business, and everything is very clearly laid out that these are the tools that you have to use, but other than that, everything else you're bringing.
So, question, are there things that you can put in your contracts? Are there other requirements that they can do to help make that determination 100%? I
The
know what it is.
the
So,
the best recommendation is to talk to an experienced employment attorney in the state that you're hiring the employee. Not it, you have to have a employment attorney in your state, and talk to one that also works in the state that I said employee. The state you're hiring the contractor, you should ha- just so that you can make sure that you are not going into any gray areas, and it's definitely money well spent. And if you can't afford to hire the attorney, then you're going to hire an employee. In my super compliance mind, that's the best thing to do. But, having an employee means that you're paying half of their FICA taxes, you're paying the state and federal unemployment, there could be other local tax requirements. I mean, there's a lot of compliance that goes in with having an employee. There's other compliance that goes in with having a contractor, and some of it depends on your risk for tolerance or your tolerance risk, and do can you really make a good solid argument for one versus the other? And just saying that you watched a TikTok on it doesn't really count.
Don't get us started on the TikTok.
Lord help us on TikTok. Okay,
No.
I have one last follow-up. Have you seen any issues in the realm of like fractional work? Has fractional positions made this more complex that you have seen?
Some of it really depends on the type of work, but with a lot of the fractional work, you having open communication with the people that you're hiring, make sure that, because if somebody wants to be a contractor just because they want to be a contractor and they have no good solid reason, but they're going to work for you full time, they're an employee. But if you've got fractional work and you've got people that have the expertise and they're coming in long term working on different things, but at best it's 10 or 15 hours a week or a month, then you can, I mean, that's a really good reason to have a contractor, because they're not only working for you, they're very possibly doing the same fractional work for other businesses or other companies.
Yeah.
And hopefully somebody talked to them about setting up a LLC so that they can protect things.
Okay, but that didn't help your other example earlier.
I know. And it's just
so now
like,
it's
but
Yeah, they got reclassified anyway.
in that case, they were working 35 hours a week for the one company,
For the one company.
and
okay.
eight,
See, I
and
wondered.
yeah, and
Mm.
but even still, they were also working for other people too. But it was only, I think,
Minimal.
10 or 12 hours a week too. It was 10 or 12 hours. It was either a week or a month. I forget the details because I did this reclassification in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That is an interesting. So that makes me think of an interesting scenario. I mean, so I have my own business. I have an EIN.
Yep.
If I have one big client that I work 30 hours a week for, and then 10 small clients that I'll only work an hour a week for, I could still run the risk of being reclassified as an employee for that big client.
Possibly.
Maybe.
And the other thing with the case example that I gave earlier, they didn't have employees that could also do the work. It was just them. And it's been a very long time since I haven't had an employee. I mean, I started out having employees way before I should have, but it was, I mean, my first employee worked like 15 hours a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think sometimes just even if you have an employee or other people that can help you do the work, and the your one big client isn't it's not a requirement that you are the only one working on that client, that other people at your firm can work on that client too,
Mm-hmm.
then that that I think would definitely help in that scenario. But
I
where
can see that.
and I'm glad you asked, because I forgot to bring that point up. The the people that got reclassified did not have employees or contractors helping with that work. It was them and them only doing that work.
Mhm. Okay. And I can
This
see where that would make a difference.
Yeah.
this brings a whole complexity to this conversation, though, with lots of those solopreneurs that we work with.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yep. It does. It does. As if payroll wasn't complicated enough already.
Talk to a professional.
Right. And if your professional says, you know what, I really don't know the answer to that question, that sounds more like a legal question. Don't just say, oh, my professional told me this, and not go seek that legal help. We
Yes.
Uh-huh.
we
Right.
all I think a lot of times we get busy, we forget what we need to do when we're talking to people. It's like, okay, you can make a note to follow up, and then you need to actually follow up. Don't just have that note sitting there in your
Yeah.
notebook on a post-it or in your project management that never gets done.
Right. Exactly. All right.
Interesting. This has been such an informative conversation, Shannon. We are so very, very grateful for your expertise in this.
Yep. Very
You're
much.
welcome.
Before we go, can you tell everyone watching and listening how to find you if they have more questions?
Yes. I'm going to share my screen again because I have a
Yes.
slide on it. Um, okay. There we That's not I I can't find my PowerPoint slide controls. Here we go. I found
Uh-oh.
them. I've got resources. I'll make this clickable power or PDF that we can post other places. But
Okay.
you can email me, or you can, if you think you want to schedule like a paid consultation, you can go to courses.dodconsultingllc.com. I just realized there's a typo on here. Courses will take you to my courses, but
Okay.
if you type in /support, that'll take you to my where you can buy the paid consultation.
Okay.
I do calls on Thursdays
Uh-huh.
using the calendly.com /payroll restoration /15 MIN, or you can call my office.
Great. All
Good.
right. Well, you may receive an influx of calls.
We've been
So,
getting a ton of influx of calls for ERC
mhm.
because the Congress has decided they might be ending that at the end of the month, but they're not going to let us
Yeah.
know until the 29th that it's going to end on the 31st. So
Mhm.
if you are a business owner and haven't already um, verified whether you're eligible or not for ERC, you can call our office or use the calendly.com /payroll restoration /Alex to talk to Alex about your ERC.
Okay.
I didn't
Good.
intend to promote that when we scheduled this, but with given the scenario that they're going to end it more than a year early, I
Uh-huh.
Good to know.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
No,
I don't agree
that's
with
good
it,
to
but
know. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are businesses out there that legitimately qualify, and
there
those are the
are
ones that we want to get them in that system. So
Yes.
absolutely
it's a good deal. All right. Well, do you have any parting words for anybody?
no. I just if if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call the office.
Uh-huh.
Emailing me, you're going to get something that says I don't really look at my email, but I still put it out there because we do still look at our email. We use secure portals to communicate with
Uh-huh.
our clients, so that's where we spend most of our day is in our portal and not really in email. But
Okay.
I from 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock, Central Time, I always have somebody answering the phone.
Great. That's good. Okay. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Shannon and you can't figure out how to do it, send me a message. I'll make sure you get connected. So
Yeah.
she is, like I said, she is the guru in my world of all things payroll. So if I have questions, she is the one that I go to. So, all right. How about you, Amanda? You have some parting words until next time?
Really, guys, talk to your professionals. Make sure that you are vetting your professionals well. I feel like I always say the same thing, but not all professionals are made the same, and not all of them are ethical and doing the right thing. And they may be engaged with you now, but when you get into trouble a few years down the road, maybe nowhere to be found. So make sure that you are using somebody who is sticking with you through it.
Very, very good advice.
Absolutely.
All right. Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you, Shannon, for being here. We do appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
Yeah, we will be back in 2 weeks on February 5th, it looks like. So
Same
we
time,
will see
same
you
place.
guys then. Yeah, same time, same place. And
Bye,
until
y'all.
then, have a good one.